Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast with NBA shooting coach Dave Love and your host, Matt Robertson, exploring the cutting edge of evidence-based shooting development in basketball today, from shooting form to skill acquisition to shot metrics. This is the Coach Dave Love podcast.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast. I am your host, Matt Robertson, and with me, as always, NBA shooting coach Dave Love. Dave, tell me what you got going on this week.
Oh, today is this week is a bit of a down week. It's a Dave movement coordination week. I've got some time at home. I don't have camps for a couple of weeks, and so I'm checking in on my research projects and trying to get one piece of code that I've been working on. Or when I say I've been working on, I don't actually mean me. I'm trying to get one piece of code to work correctly, and it's driving me absolutely bonkers. So these are the things you expect to hear from a shooting coach when they talk about their
absolutely. My tech designer friends also, and my shooting coach friends, similar interests, similar day-to-day duties.
Right. I'm considering, do I need to take a Python coding course? And had it been 10 years ago, I think I would have. Now we have AI that can essentially do this for me a lot faster than I can learn to do it myself and do a better job. So yeah, it's a weird time in the world.
It is a weird time in the world. Work smarter, not harder, buddy.
There you go. What's going on with you? What's the latest?
What's the latest? Just really trying to get back in shape. My college season's done for the semester. We finished 6-2, second place in our conference, and we have a 5-week break. And now the journey to game shape really kicks into earnest now that I have some time in the afternoons and evenings.
So 36 years old, and you have to be in game shape in 3 months?
Yeah.
What, do you have a plan? Is it just like, I'm just going to kill myself for the next 3 months, or are you ramping up?
I love ramping up. Joel Embiid, always ramping up. It's a famous Zach Lowe bit where he's just like, he's always is he ever at full speed? No, always ramping up. No, so bite-sized pieces and trying to use a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last year with myself, which is a fun thing. And right now, my challenge point from a shooting perspective is lower than it probably needs to be. So ramping up the pace with which that I'm working into these shots is sort of the big goal for the next month. And with that, I'll do a bunch of, cardio stuff, but that's kind of the big goal.
Do you have an idea of what your role is going to be with this team?
Absolutely. It is like ironclad. I'll be playing like 12 minutes a game, shooting open threes, moving and playing very little actual defense, but being a good team positional defender.
Perfect. I'm so excited for you. I wish I had this ability, but and was also 15 years younger, but I'm not, and I don't. So I'll live vicariously through you.
Listen, the only thing I can do is still shoot it and talk on D, and I will be doing all of that in the minutes that I'm given or forced to play.
I always joked that my best defensive move, I was just really good at yelling help because I had a lot of practice. I was loud and clear that I needed help, and that was the best thing that I offered defensively.
I think honestly, I'll probably end up guarding some fours in this league, which from a foot speed perspective is less of an issue, and I'm stronger than a lot of those guys and less athletic than a lot of them. So trying to find that balance, and that's going to be my kind of cross the bear defensively.
What's the name of the team again?
The Tri-City Tide, which is part of the TBL, which is the basketball league.
Awesome. I need multiple t-shirts.
we can hook you up.
Yeah, well, no, I'm coming out there and I'm going to the team shop, which I can only imagine is gigantic.
It's robust.
Yes, and getting one of everything. So Why are you laughing?
You're the best.
All right,
Coach
let's
Dave
get into
Love,
it. It's
ball
gonna get
path.
silly.
Ball
All
path.
right.
Okay, this is our second episode on ball path. Let's dig into a little bit more about what ball path is, um, kind of what it means to you, why you were studying it. Give us the Coles Notes. What is it?
Okay, so the ball path, as I define it, is kind of the beginning of the lifting motion or the beginning of the shot through till the moment the ball leaves their hand. Like while the ball is in the player's hand, where and how is the ball moving? That would be how I would define the ball path. Because the reason I want to make sure that we define it is to me that's very obvious. And then in talking to somebody that wasn't a basketball person, they got focused on they imagined the path of the ball in the air, which I would define as the arc. And so I just want to always, and we should be doing this, I guess, with players. I always want to make sure that do we both understand what we're talking about? And so I want to make sure we start the episode with that. The path of the ball is when the ball is in the player's hands.
So from the catch to the release, that is the path of the ball.
Yeah, or the dribble pickup, yeah.
Or the dribble pickup. Perfect. So, I mean, is there a right answer right out of the gate? Like, we should be doing it this way. We should be doing it that way. Is there like something concrete that you've got for us?
Yeah, it's bolded the next line in my show notes that you've read, and you did an excellent job of John Stockton like feeding me this. Yes, the answer that I want everybody to understand is it depends.
Great, terrific.
Yeah, there is no like theoretically there might be a perfect, but we don't know what that is. I feel like I'm going to share some of the aspects that I've learned from the research that we've done that play a role in this, and the research that we are currently working on that hasn't been published around the ball path is to give you an idea of what I've learned has mattered. But we're still at the stage where it's more questions than answers, and better questions, fortunately, than we had before. And then we really just have to understand as coaches, no two movements are the same. And so really try to stop teaching a perfect way, especially around the ideas that perfect thing never happens in a game. If we looked at a whole bunch of set points for shooters, they're going to look very, very similar from shooter to shooter. So if you're going to spend some time focusing on trying to be perfect, try to be perfect flowing through this set point that is fairly repeatable from player to player. But if you looked at a whole bunch of pictures of somebody at triple threat position at the beginning of their shooting motion, they're going to look very, very different. So why are you trying to make them all look the same? It doesn't happen that way in a game, and that's going to be the big thing that I want player or coaches to understand as they listen through this episode. We're going to give you a lot of it depends and a lot of trade-offs.
But there is a concrete thing that you'll get to that ball path has kind of shown you, right? That's
There are definitely places where I focus more attention.
Yeah.
But even within that, there are trade-offs that we need to understand. So you give me two players, they may be working on a similar aspect of their shot in completely different ways, because the way that each of them get into trouble will be different than the other.
You did mention one time a bunch of episodes ago about adding variability in lifting motion in workouts for this very reason, right? Where it's just like, I need to practice getting to my set point from a bunch of different angles, directions, speeds, just because there might be a defender. I might be moving a direction where it's harder to get to from that going that way, like there's a lot of reasons why you would work on the path from the catch or pickup to the set point.
Yeah, and what we're going to get into, there's a ton. I've got a list of a bunch of trade-offs in that part that we just have to kind of understand the nuances of. And I think when you're new to teaching shooting or new to coaching, you want the black and white ideas. Like, there's so much to understand. Like, give me some guardrails here, and that's fine. That can be where we start. But as we learn as coaches and as we develop our skills as coaches, we have to take down those guardrails. We don't want to be limited in those ways, and we need to start to understand the nuances of shooting. Like, we should be working to make the shooting motion as simple as possible, but that is not a simple process.
Mm-hmm.
And many times we can oversimplify the process in order to get good practice results. But they're not those things. The way that we're working aren't going to get us necessarily the best game results.
Totally makes sense. I look at my own training and I'm trying to increase the pace of which I'm able to get to my shooting motion, sprinting to the corner, getting a catch, and releasing the ball properly. And my form right now is breaking down at game pace. And so I need to be pushing myself. There's a progression there. Like you said, it's a simple concept. It's not a simple progression. It's not a simple process.
Yeah, it's not do this one drill and then you'll get better at this habit. It's if you do that one drill, you're going to get better at the drill. But is that drill actually going to help you in a game? Often the answer is no. So, all right. So when we talk about this ball path, we're going to kind of talk about it from two different views. We're going to talk about it from the front view, as though you're the coach standing directly in front of the shooter, looking at the shooter, and how does the ball move relative to the midline of their body. And then we'll also talk about it from the side view. If you were standing, like if they're shooting a free throw and you were standing free throw line extended on their shooting hand side, what would the path of the ball take? We're going to kind of break down some of the things that I look for and the trade-off from each of those angles.
Awesome. So let's start with the front view. Like, obviously in a perfect world, you'd like the ball traveling in a straight line, right?
Yeah. That ideally we don't want the ball changing direction, especially from this view. That we definitely want the ball moving up and towards the target out of the player's hands. The sooner we can get the ball moving up and towards the target and along that intended line, the better. So that would be the perfect world. But then you look at guys like KD, who brings the ball up the left side of his body on every single shot. Or you look at guys like Kyrie, who is I think he's consistently now a 90% free throw shooter. And if you look at the ball path, lateral ball path for him on free throws, it is, even with his feet square to the target, the ball is coming up from basically his left hip to the set point, which means the ball is now moving to the left. And so part of our research, we went in to the research on release curvature, attempting to prove the hypothesis that a smoother ball path with fewer changes of directions is the most accurate way to shoot the basketball. And like I've said on many podcasts, that's not what we found out. And so it led to asking better questions. And what we're starting to see is that you can have a change of direction. You just have to make sure that you finish the change of direction before you really start to accelerate the ball, which usually occurs after the set point. That we get to a set point and the ball for even Steph Curry, who is the smoothest ball path and has the most consistent speed of the ball through his entire ball path, even he slows the ball down at a set point. Like, it's just what happens in physics. When the ball's changing direction, it needs to slow down. As long as we can come out of that position and then accelerate in a straight line versus still changing the direction of the ball as we're starting to accelerate. That's when you get into trouble.
So just points of clarification. From the front view, you're talking about a change of direction left to right across the midline. When you say smooth ball path, you're talking about the side view having an almost straight ball path up the side view from triple threat or from catch or pickup to release, right? Those are just for point of clarification.
That's kind of how I was visualizing it as I was saying it, but the concepts are the same regardless of view.
Gotcha.
We want the ball to be traveling in a straight line, so it's not that the path from the side needs to be smooth. I need to remember we're going to get to that. The important part is, can we get the ball traveling in a straight line out of the set point? So then the other part that I need people to understand, because again, we're going to be talking a lot about trade-offs. There are benefits in slowing down at the set point and with shortening up the shooting motion, but you just have to be strong enough to be able to do it. An 11-year-old is not going to be able to lift the ball to their set point, slow the ball down at that point so they're more in control, and then accelerate when they've only got a foot of room to accelerate and spindly little arms to try and apply force to the basketball with. That's harder. So for those players, yes, we probably do need the ball moving through the set point, generating force earlier, but now you have a longer motion to try and control. And these are the things that I really want to make sure people understand.
So when you talk about smooth ball path, you're talking about closer to a one motion, what we would call we did an episode a while ago on hot button topics and one motion versus two motion shooting. The smoother ball path would generally reflect a one motion or closer to a one motion shooting situation.
Yeah, depending on how we define one and two motion. If you were to think of it this way, from the front view, if you were to go through every frame of video of somebody shooting a basketball and mark where the basketball is, ideally we want that to be in a straight line, especially from the front view. But there are advantages in having the ball change a direction, which means the ball does slow down. So you now have a shorter motion where you begin more controlled. You just have to be strong enough to be able to do it.
Got that. Do you want to talk a little bit about significant changes in direction as from a trade-off perspective? Just dive into that.
I feel like we're going to hit that a lot through the entire episode. So let's just spend 1 second on one more thing before we take a little break here. Where is the ideal line? Like if that ball is supposed to be in a straight line, how close to the middle of the body should it be? And so the idea that I would teach is, yes, I want it a straight line. I want that to be as on line with your eyes as possible. But what I need is the shooting hand to be underneath the middle of the basketball. The shooting hand is what is applying force. And this is the part that is just physics. And we can't alter the laws of physics. If the shooting hand is over on the side of the basketball, it's going to push the ball offline in the opposite direction or require a compensating move. So I would like to get as close to two things as possible. Straight line up the middle of the body with the middle of the hand on the middle of the basketball. But not every player is flexible enough to be able to do that. And so I let them kind of drift that line towards their shooting hand eye, maybe off towards their ear in order to compensate for maybe lack of mobility in their shoulder or their back. And so I just want it to be as close to the line of the eyes as I possibly can get it, so that we're not shooting off the shoulder, guessing what line that we're going to be pushing the ball on. We're getting the ball fairly on line with our eyes, so that we can actually see the line that we want to be shooting the basketball on.
So Matt Bonner, not ideal.
Not ideal. Can you make it work? Absolutely, you can make it work. But as we talked about, and if you want, go check out the on my blog. I forget the exact title of the blog, but it's Exploring the Sandbox Part 2, or a practical approach to exploring the sandbox. And we talk about how, he's probably a great example of the outer limit of where you can have the ball as far as off the midline. And it can work, just doesn't give you the ability to adapt. And he couldn't dribble drive going left because he'd then have to bring the ball back to his right shoulder, which is right where that defender is going to be standing. And no adaptability.
Make sure you check out that feature. We did some notes on it in a few different podcasts on the literal sandbox, exploring the sandbox. Check it out. It is valuable. And I think there's some, regardless of who you are, I think there's some value there for you. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the side view.
Hey there, basketball fans. Coach Dave Love here with an exciting opportunity to revolutionize your shooting game. Introducing my exclusive shot development systems, Pure Release, Consistency and Balance, and Fluidity and Arc. Each system is designed to target key aspects of your shooting technique, transforming you into a more effective player on the court. Pure Release focuses on perfecting your shot release. Consistency and Balance enhances your stability and accuracy, and Fluidity and Arc works on your ball path and trajectory of your shot. Find out the drills and progressions that I use with my NBA players to improve these important habits. Can't decide which one to choose? No worries, grab the bundle and get all three systems at a fantastic value. It's a complete package to elevate every part of your shooting game. And there's a special deal for all my podcast listeners. Use the promo code PODCAST20 at checkout to save 20% on any of the shot development systems. Don't miss this chance to train like the pros. Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store and take your first step towards shooting success. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store.
Okay, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, we have a shtick where we take an ATO after a timeout, which is the ATO stands for after timeout, and we drop a play. And I put 24 up on the thought clock in my office, and Coach Dave has to give a concise look at something important that we talked about in the last segment.
Just understand the trade-offs of the front view of your ball path, that yes, we would like a straight line that generates more power, but the trade-off is if you have a change of direction, you effectively shorten the motion, making it easier to control. You just have to be able to be strong enough I'm fumbling it. You have to be strong enough to be able to generate enough force in that shorter motion.
We got through it. Wasn't pretty. Kicked off someone's leg into the corner. We shot a mid-range.
Who was the guy? Remember about 8 years ago where there's like a side out of bounds? I feel like it was for the Pacers or the Warriors. I remember a blue and yellow jersey for some reason. And there was only like 0.2 seconds on the shot clock. And the guy had his back to the basket and just popped it up in the air.
Utah Jazz, Trevor Booker.
Trevor Booker? Okay. So I got the yellow part. Yeah, they're yellowish and blue. I felt like I kind of kicked the ball, bounced off somebody's back there at the end, and then I just had to, but it went in.
It went in. Okay, so when we're looking at the side view, the ball path and the side view, what is it that really matters to us, Dave?
Okay, so this will, for just about every player, is going to be an S curve as they lift the ball from triple threat out away from their body, back towards their forehead, and then up and forwards from their forehead set point position. That will resemble an S curve. What really matters is how straight of a line we get out of the out of the set point. That and especially the last moments, like the closer you get to the release of the ball from your hand, the more important it is to have the ball traveling in a straight line. And that should be fairly intuitive to most of us, where we say, like, okay, early in the motion, you've got a lot of time to correct things. But if you have the path of the ball curving just before you're releasing it, then that is more difficult to control the distance and arc of your shot.
So for the people who have never really heard about this before, and we did address it in the intro, but you're standing to the right of the shooter, or sorry, to the shooting hand side of the shooter. We're watching the ball travel up their body, probably in an S curve, and then at the set point, the ball should go straight out, up and out towards the hoop, and that's the ideal line from a ball path perspective.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is different than what gets taught. That all over the all over social media will be the idea that we want this ball path to be smooth. We want the S that we're imagining to be as narrow as possible and to be as close to a straight line as we possibly can. And again, that is the hypothesis that we went into our research trying to prove as well. And they've done 2 studies around this now. One that has been published, a second that we're actually writing the paper on now that we have the results. Both of them showed that this is not, in fact, true. That is the straightness of the path out of the set point, and especially the second half out of the set point, that is what matters. And the first study actually showed an inverse correlation between how smooth the path of the ball is and how accurate shooters are. In other words, the people with the smoothest ball paths ended up being the weakest shooters when we quantified it, when we did peer-reviewed studies, not opinion-based, and which forces then to ask a better question of, okay, well, what does matter? And now, if you kind of take a step back, I want you to imagine you're the coach standing free throw line extended to a player, and you're watching the path of the ball as they start a triple threat position. And let's imagine they do what the conventional wisdom would be, which is keep the ball smooth. They lift the ball in a perfectly straight line, very close to their body, all the way up. Now the ball is moving straight up in the air. It's got to curve at some point. At some point, it's got to change direction. And the longer that we get the ball traveling, or the smoother the path, the more we're forcing that change of direction to be at the end or near the end of the path. Where if you release it a little bit early, then the ball's going too high, or if you release it a little bit too late, it's going too flat. But if you can get there to be a natural change in direction and a straight line out of it, we have now the entire motion from the set point through the release of the ball, where the ball's traveling a straight line. Release it early, release it late, doesn't matter. It's always going the same direction. Now your distance control is better.
It's going in a straight line out of the set point. One of the cool things about the studies you guys did was that the 2 best shooters, just from a data from a lifetime standpoint, the 2 best shooters you studied had 2 of the most significant curves in their ball path moving up the side of their body, which is a very fun, little nuance.
Yeah, that Brady Heslop, career 43% 3-point shooter in major Division I, like played at Baylor, 43% from 3. Played in the G League, 43% from 3. Played over in EuroLeague, 43% from 3. Like, just,
it's pretty good.
The guys came in to do our study, shot 100 unguarded threes, made 95 of them. And he had by far the biggest change of direction of all the people we measured. The second guy was Steve Sir, who is he was at Northern Arizona University a while ago, and he's either the best NCAA 3-point percentage for a career or for a season. I can't remember which one. And just another one of these guys that's a machine. He made like 85 with a ball that he's not familiar with. He's playing 3-on-3 right now. Only shoots with a 3-on-3 ball, which is a little smaller and a little heavier. And then I gave him a regular basketball, and he shot about 20 shots to warm up. And then we did the study, and he was disappointingly only made 85 out of the 100, or 83.
He played in the NBL Canada. He played in the NBL Canada for, I think, 2 seasons and was an absolute sniper. He played with the Halifax Rainmen, not the Windjammers, unfortunately, but with the Rainmen back in the day.
And then, so those two guys, unbelievable shooters, biggest change of direction. And then I won't name who the player was, but NBA EuroLeague caliber player, who at the time was a 31% three-point shooter, had the smoothest ball path. And this was enough of a trend for us to get published to say, like, we might be teaching this wrong. And so that's the general concept. Do not focus on how smooth the ball path is unless the biggest reason that a player is missing is lack of power. So for your 12-year-old, yeah, that might be a great idea. But if we're talking about mature players who are 6'7" and 220 pounds of muscle, it might not be. And we need to understand the nuances as opposed to defining a black and white rule. So do we want to go through like some of these trade-offs?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so excuse me. Trade-off number 1, a smoother ball path will generate more power, but now the player has a longer path to try and control. So essentially, yeah, if you take a giant backswing in golf, the ball might go farther, but you also increase the likelihood that you're going to spray it left or right. Same thing in baseball. You can generate more power with a big looping swing, but you might strike out a lot more. So that'll be trade-off number 1. A smoother ball path can also force the curve to happen too late. So yeah, it generates more power, but it places the curving part, the part that we want to avoid, closer to the release when we really don't want it to happen. A more significant change in direction can reduce the speed of the ball, making it easier to control. But we just have to have the physical strength in order to compensate for the lack of velocity of the ball earlier in the motion. A more significant change in direction also helps the ball get in a straighter line earlier. But again, you just have to be strong enough. A smoother path keeps the ball close to the body unless we try and make a square perfectly. So let me explain this one for a sec. There's a big idea that, okay, a triple threat position, let's reduce variables, and let's make sure that we lock our wrist and we lock our elbow, and we're essentially making the square shape or the 290-degree angles that we would want at the set point. We're making that a triple threat position. So, unfortunately, that only gives you your shoulder to hinge, which means that path is going to be an arc, is going to be a curve, is going to be a semicircle, where the ball, if you only use your shoulder and you lock your elbow and your wrist in place, the ball is going to move out and away from your body, then up, then back and towards the body. But you're saying we want to reduce variabilities and we want to get the ball in a straight line. But the habit that you're teaching doesn't allow that to happen. So if we want the straight line, then we've got to give fluidity in the wrist and the elbow and the shoulder for those 3 joints to work together. We can't freeze degrees of freedom in the elbow and the wrist and expect the ball to travel in a straight line. So we've got two conflicting ideas that we're trying to teach because we're trying to create these hard, fast rules. And I think we're missing the point on both of them. And we'll go into this in the second half of the podcast here, but I don't get picky about teaching the perfect starting point where the wrist and the elbow is locked out and the ball is traveling in a straight line. That might be what, in theory, the ball in a straight line is in theory what I want to maximize, but I've got to have the flexibility to adjust for each individual player and how they struggle with this.
Hence, it depends, right?
It depends.
Okay, Dave, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple specific situations.
Hey there, basketball fans. I'm NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and I've got exciting news just for you. Introducing my exclusive, free basketball shooting newsletter. It's packed with insights and techniques straight from the hardwood. Have you ever wondered how NBA players improve their shots? Or how you could get to the next level, whether you're a college player, a coach, or a budding youth player? My newsletter brings all this and more directly to your inbox. Each edition is a deep dive into the world of basketball shooting. I'll share some of the tips and ideas that I use with my NBA clients, tailored for every level of the game. But wait, there's more. Subscribers receive exclusive monthly discounts on my online products. From training videos to personalized coaching sessions, you'll get it all for a fraction of the price. And the best part of all, it's absolutely free to join. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your game and join a community of passionate players and coaches from around the globe. Signing up is easy. Just visit CoachDaveLove.com.
All right, welcome back. Coach Dave, as always, we put 24 up on the thought clock. Give me a concise look at something we talked about in the last segment.
Do not focus most of your coaching attention on making the side view ball path as smooth as possible. Instead, focus your coaching attention on making the path out of the set point as smooth as possible.
Concise. Crushed it. I like that a lot. We ran the play to perfection. Okay.
Yeah, I feel, that was a Paul Westphal. Paul Westphal, 7 seconds or less?
Mike D'Antoni, 7 seconds or less.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. But
it's okay. Okay, let's talk about some very specific situations. So the no dip shot, how does this factor into ball path?
It depends. Like we've got two groups of people, it feels like, trying to put guardrails around the shot and try to say you should dip the basketball or you should never dip the basketball. And I want people to understand the trade-offs. Not dipping the basketball can be faster. You just have to be strong enough to be able to do it. You also then have to understand that, like, there was a great no-dip LeBron about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So let's say early November 2024. I guess we have to start to say that in case people are listening years down the road, where he caught the ball on the wing right around the break. Defender was in his space, and he just held the ball up at his set point around his forehead for a couple of seconds and then just lifted out of his set point. So that's an extreme example where he didn't even have the momentum of the pass being made to his forehead and just kind of redirecting that momentum. It was coming from a dead stop, the basketball. And there's an additional challenge to that where, yes, it was faster. Yes, it's a more compact motion. But now if you start to accelerate the ball a little bit too fast, then you have no wiggle room to adjust. And so we need the ball exiting. And I forget for 3-point shots what the exit velocity is. It's either 25 or around 25 or around 30 feet per second, depending on the height of the player and the exact distance of the shot. I know for free throws it's around 20 feet per second, but threes, I forget. So let's say it's 25 feet per second. If you've got it at 0 when the ball's at your forehead, and you need to get to 25 by the time that it is 2 feet later in your shot, you don't have much room to adjust. You start that thing a little too fast, and you got no time to slow it down a little bit. And so, yes, going to be faster. Gives you another tool. Got to be strong enough to be able to do it. Have to understand that it's tougher to adjust. And so, there, to me, would I like a good shooter? Cam Johnson with the Brooklyn Nets, he had another no dip 3 late November 2024. And guys like that, I would love them to have that weapon. If you can prove that you can make you can shoot the ball, then this is a way of adapting that I'd love you to explore. I don't want to limit you by taking that away, saying you should dip because 12-year-olds need to dip. Yeah, 12-year-olds do need to dip the basketball. They do need to get the ball low. We should not be teaching them to move the ball to their set point at their forehead and go from there. It's different people will require different solutions. I almost went on a tangent rant, old man yelling at clouds, as you like to say, but I held myself back.
The first iteration of the podcast would have really, really encouraged that, and we're trying to stay on the straight and narrow here, tight 40. Okay, so what about somebody with a significant overhead release, like a Nikola Jokic or even a Luka Doncic, that has a significant sort of or very high set point?
Yeah, as soon as the set point goes over top of the head, the elbow's now lifted, and we now have a similar thing. We have a fulcrum around which the lever is going to pivot. That the elbow now doesn't really have any more room to lift. It's only got another inch or two, and so we've essentially got our hand at the end of our arm acting as the lever, pivoting around the elbow. That makes a curve. Release it a little early. We're going to get the ball going a little bit too high and probably not far enough. Release the ball a little bit late. It's probably a little bit flatter than you intended and probably going to go too far. It makes distance control hard. We want to try and avoid that overhead set point because it doesn't allow us to use 3 joints, which keeps the hand underneath the middle of the ball and the ball traveling in a straight line.
It doesn't necessarily mean we can't create a straight line out of that position. It just makes it really difficult, right?
Yeah. That trying to think if I should list a significant player who does this. Little bit of an inconsistent shooter, and he does a good job of getting to a straight line. Just gets to it really, really late. And so this is the kind of player that, yeah, he will have the 6 for 8 3-point nights. He will also have the 2 for 5 free throw nights. And I would like more consistency than that. And so I would guide towards a set point that's a little bit more in front, that gives us the 3 joints to work together in a straight line, as opposed to one joint working in a curved ball path.
How about somebody with a low set point, like a Trae Young or Kyrie Irving, someone that has a kind of a chin height?
Let's go more to the youth low set point. Let's go to more around the neck or the upper chest area, which is what tends to happen with the 12-year-olds. Makes it impossible to get the shooting hand underneath the middle of the ball, and now we've just got a ball path that from the set point is traveling on a straighter line at the target. Or they get an inverse curve, like most people get a curvature where they go up and then forward, but these players go forward and then try to lift up. Opposite way of doing it that you don't necessarily see in the pros, but it's equally detrimental.
I gotcha. Okay, Dave, let's take a quick break and we'll get into some kind of practical applications here after the break.
Hey basketball fans, Coach Dave Love here with an exclusive offer just for you, my personalized video shot analysis. Imagine having an NBA shooting coach analyze your shooting form, just like I do for the pros. That's exactly what you'll get with my video shot analysis. Here's how it works. You send me a video of your shot and I'll break it down frame by frame. I'll pinpoint your strengths and identify the areas of improvement and give you tailored advice to take your shot to the next level. You'll receive a comprehensive analysis designed just for you. Whether you're a beginner or an aspiring pro, my feedback will help you shoot with confidence and precision. It isn't just feedback, it's a game changer. With my video shot analysis, you're not just practicing, you're evolving, and every single shot counts. Ready to transform your game? Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store to learn more and get started. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store and look for video shot analysis.
Welcome back. Coach, 24 up on the thought clock. This is an ATO. Give us a concise look at an important thing we talked about in the last segment.
I'm going to go with the set point overhead. Forces the elbow to be already lifted, but you haven't started the shooting motion yet, which causes the hand to pivot around the elbow, making a curved ball path, which we've shown in research makes it tough to control your distance.
Crushed it. Great job, Coach. Okay, so what do I do with this information? Like, what does this mean to me as a coach today? Do you want to just call this hammer action and just hit the next 3 items? Okay, so hammer action for first-time listener is a segment where we try to hammer home actionable items from today's episode. What do we do with this?
So how I'm starting to work with this more is I'm starting to use differential learning more and more and more. And so I'll identify the way in which a player's ball path might be holding them back. And then rather than doing a lot of movement coordination form shooting drills, which I may still go back to at times, I'm doing far, far less of those. And I'm doing far more differential learning. So I'm getting away from the very deliberate, prescribed, I want you to be here, I want you to be here, I want you to be here, and encouraging exploration. So let me give you a couple of examples of people. Let's say that we've got a guy who brings the ball up the left side of their body and then has the ball changing direction around their set point as the ball is moving to the right to get on the right side, then lifting straight out of there. They've got a curving ball path from the front view where left hip, moving right, then lifting. I would start by saying to the player, okay, like making them aware of what they are doing and why it might hold them back and what the more ideal idea that we want to explore around would be. We'll have that conversation. I may even put them in a couple of simple drills to get them to feel that. But then as quickly as I can, I'll do things with differential learning that look like, okay, I want the ball, you start the ball over in your left hip. Let's call that a -3. And the middle of your body would be 0. And you're starting the ball in your right hip would be a +3. Okay, I'm going to give you a number and I want you to try and start with the ball there. So if I pass you the basketball and in the air, I ask for 0, you're going to try and put the ball in the middle of your body and lift straight up through the shot point from there. If I ask for a +3, you're putting it over on your right hip and trying to go up. If I ask for a -3, it's your left hip and you're going up. So I will then say, like, hey, we want to explore. You're used to a -3. I want to get you to a 0, +1, maybe a +2. So when I pass to the first one, I'm going to ask for a +1. And chances are they're not going to give me a +1. They're going to think they're doing a +1 and they're going to go to a -2, where it's a little different than what they've normally done, but not nearly as much as it needs to be. And then my feedback needs to be like, okay, what did that feel like? That was over on your right side. Well, I actually saw it still over on your left side. I would say that was -2. Okay, try and give me a +2 again. And hopefully they get a little bit closer and closer to this, and I just guide them with my numbers, and then intentionally introduce variability as they start to actually recalibrate what ones and twos feel like. I'll give them ones, twos, threes, and zeros, and very rarely will I give them like -1s or -2s, but again, allowing them to explore around and then asking guided questions on what did that feel like? Can you describe that feeling for me so that I can find cues out of that information? That's sort of the differential learning. That is essentially, if we go back to the periodization episode where we talk about different ways to practice on different days, this would essentially be a blue day. We're now exploring around the more optimal movement pattern in an environment where we have a chance to be around it more often, like an easy enough environment. So form shooting-ish, but not the ultra constrained, you must do it this way form shooting, the more exploring form shooting.
Which, as we've talked about for 40 odd episodes now, this is what the data says creates better learning environments or more optimal learning environments, right?
Yeah. And it's been shown for decades. And I hope that as coaches, I know I'm becoming more aware of it. I know I'm not an expert in this. I'm not perfect at this. I still have a ton to learn, but that's what I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to get better at teaching the way that people learn. So then, can I finish up with, okay, what would a green day look like?
Yeah.
We talked about in the periodization episode that we can't just do movement coordination, blue drills, and expect them players to apply this into a game environment. We've got to start to teach them how to adapt the skills. We've got to have green days or skill adaptability training days. And so on a green day, assuming it's just me and the player, I'll now start to present problems to them where, okay, I would like you to get to a +1 or a +2. What happens when I pass it to a -6? How do you get the ball there? And, oh, by the way, there's a constraint of a defender running at you. You don't have the time to go -6, put it at a +2, and then start to shoot from there. You've got to get from the -6 as close to the +2 as you can in the time that you've got. What do you do when my hand is on your hip and you can't sidestep directly to a +2 or a +1? You've got to get around my hand. Like, how do we do that? How do we do this when you're off balance? And a natural balancing tool is going to be using the basketball and your arms to keep you on balance. Well, that may pull you out of the ideal shooting position. It often does. How do we compensate for that? Those would be the kinds of things we'd be exploring around. You're still trying to get as close to the +1 or +2 as you can, but in more game-like environments than the perfect environment.
Green day. Time
Green
of our
day.
life. Good riddance.
There you go.
Coach Dave, I always learn from you. This has been an awesome episode. I think it's a really good kind of sort of rounds out ball path a little bit for your average person to kind of understand. Anything else you want to cover on this topic before we wrap up? Or do you feel like
No, I feel like we're going to keep circling back to these ideas now. And so that'll be important for us to just keep revisiting and talking about things in different ways and maybe updating some thoughts based on other research or other learnings or new exploration with drills. So we'll come back to this at a later date.
Awesome. If you are a first-time listener, hope you enjoyed it. Please come back again or dive into the archives. We have a ton of episodes that Coach Dave referenced periodization, freezing degrees of freedom, adaptability, variability, all of these concepts and topics we cover kind of through our catalog. So please feel free to check those out. Coach Dave, if people want to learn more from you, where can they find you?
Instagram and Twitter at Coach Dave Love, or go to coachdavelove.com and sign up for my free newsletter. What about you?
I am on LinkedIn at Matt Robertson, and on X at Coach Matty Rob, although I have not been active lately and need to really get on that. So thank you for listening again. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. It all really helps, and see us next week.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Coach Dave Love Podcast. To stay up to date with our future episodes, please remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to sign up for Coach Love's free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com, and be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him at Coach Dave Love.